What we're going to look at today is the Akedah, the binding of Isaac. And there's a lot of good stuff in there, huh?
Hold on, may I read something real quick? I'm sorry,
Sure.
because of the maybe that's come up if you want me to.
Yep.
Okay, so this is also Sodom and Gomorrah, and this is very important because context is everything when it comes to everything. Life is story. And the story is the context. All of the facts, all of the truth comes in context, and without context, truth means nothing. This is from Sanhedrin 109b. This is verse 9. In regards to Sodom, there was a young woman who would take bread out to the poor people in a pitcher so that the people of Sodom would not see it. The matter was revealed, and they smeared her with honey and positioned her on the wall of the city. And the hornets came and consumed her. And that is the meaning of that which is written. And the Lord said, because the cry of Sodom and Gomorrah is great, which is Rabbah, Genesis 18:20, and that is why and Rob, excuse me, sorry, I lost my place here. And Rav Yehuda says that Rav says Rabbah is an allusion to the matter of the young woman, Riva, who was killed for her act of kindness. It is due to that sin that the fate of the people of Sodom was sealed.
Yep. 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 Sodom and Gomorrah were that were selfish. They only took people in if they could benefit from them. It was against the law to feed the poor. I mean, this is not just coming from Jewish, it's coming from other civilizations at that time that talk about Sodom and Gomorrah. And the reason that, a lot of people say this because of the homosexuality and stuff like that, that was just a symptom. The greater crime, we take Abraham and see how he hosted people. He didn't even know. Even as we read about the three angels that came to him, um, he would set up his tent at the crossroads so that uh, he could talk to people. Just like it says that when he left Haran, it says when God told him to leave, he left with all the souls he had made. And the Hebrew it says all the souls he had made. Those weren't servants or slaves. Those were people that he was the first missionary, you might say. He those people were people that he converted to monotheism, to the one true God, and they followed him to Canaan. And he did the same thing here, and that's why we read about him. Even though he just got circumcised, the heat of the day, probably in pain, he sees those three men and he recognizes them. He recognizes them, who they are, the servants of God. And he offered to be a host to them, and he did. His family took part in it. His servants, his people, they took part in blessing them, taking it, washing their feet. I mean, that's a big thing to do because you're wearing sandals or barefoot, and wash someone's feet is to show honor and hospitality, and that's what he did. And then feeding them as well. You that's an awesome story, and one I really love. But I have to just say again, though, I know a lot of people use that what was going on there to only look at the sin of homosexuality, but the sin was their inhospitality to people and their lack of fear of God. They lacked that God would judge them for anything they did. They used the acts of homosexuality as a way to keep people away, to keep them from coming. And the story of the young lady, that's just one of many stories that other cultures that were around that time period talk about, that they did to people who did anything to help the poor people. It's even in one of the culture's writings, it talks about that you never went to Sodom and Gomorrah as a poor person to beg for food because you would starve to death. That's the cry. They were very inhospitable, selfish people. Okay. Now, what I want to talk about today as well. Thank you, Ben, for bringing that. It's a good story. Is I want to talk about Abraham's test. It's his 10th test. The number 10 is a number for judgment. Okay? There was 10 generations from Adam to Noah and the flood. And now there are 10 generations from Noah to Abraham. So we've got another testing coming. Abraham is being tested. And it says that after these things, God tested Abraham. He said to him, Abraham, and he answered, Hineni, here am I. Here I am. He said, take your son, and this is interesting. This is a funny thing. This is in the Midrash. Take your son, and Abraham says to God, which son? He says, your only son. He says, but I have two, whom you love, but I love them both. Yitzhak. So he has to clarify, which son? Okay, Yitzhak. And go to the land of Moriah. Okay? There you are to offer him as a burnt offering on a mountain that I will point out to you. Okay? So this is one day. He's going to, God knows that he just gave me this son and now you're going to take him. But that's not what Abraham does. It says, Abraham got up early in the morning, saddled his donkey, and took two of his young men with him, together with Yitzhak his son. He cut the wood for the burnt offering. Okay? He prepared it. Okay? And we're going to see this is very interesting. Just as God prepared our world at that time for Yeshua, prepared for him. Okay? For the burnt offering. Departed and went toward the place God had told him about. On the third day, Abraham raised his eyes and saw the place in the distance. The third day is actually the fourth day. The day he talked to him. And then 3 days later, he's at the mountain, right? And he looks and he sees in the distance. That's the same thing that we see with Abraham, is that what was he looking for? A city not built by hands, by humans, right? Okay. And so he's seeing this, and then we're going to go into this why. Abraham said to the young man, stay here with the donkey. I and the boy will go there, worship, and return to you. So he's already saying, we're going to return, okay? But how does he know that? If he's going to offer him up, how does he know that? Because he knows something's up, okay? Abraham took the wood for the burnt offering and laid it on Yitzhak his son. The wood for the burnt offering, he laid it on the back of his son. His son carried that wood, instrument for his death. Okay? And when we look at it, we see that Yeshua too carried the wood, the instrument for his death. Right? It was on his back. Right? Then he took in his hand the fire and the knife, and they both went on together. And Yitzhak spoke to Abraham his father. My father. He answered, Hineni, my son. Here I am, my son. He said, I see the fire and the wood, but where is the lamb for the burnt offering? Abraham replied, God will provide himself the lamb for a burnt offering, my son. And they both went on together, just as Yeshua cried to a father. Father, if there's another way, please take it from me. Nevertheless, your will be done. Right? That's what we see here. Exact picture.
And you see the ongoing theme here. You start with the cry of Saddam. Right? Cry became so great that God's like, okay, what's going on? I got to send my angels. Then comes the cry of Yitzhak, which is foreshadowing of Mashiach.
Mm-hmm.
Then comes the cry of Mashiach. Each time God responds. When evil becomes so bad, God finally says, okay, enough is enough. There's a breaking point. And that breaking point is coming.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thank you. And so they both went on together. Now they came to the place God had told him about. And Abraham built the altar there, set the wood in order. See, our God is a God of order. Okay? So he set the wood in order. He built out of stone, like he's supposed to, and he laid the wood up there like he's supposed to, right? In some type of order. We don't exactly know how. But, okay, And then he bound Yitzhak his son and laid him on the altar. Then Abraham put out his hand and took the knife to kill his son. So he's ready to do this, right? He's ready to do this. But the angel of Adonai called to him out of heaven, Abraham, Abraham. He answered, Hineni, here I am. He said, don't lay your hand on the boy. Don't do anything to him, for now I know that you are a man who fears God, because you have not withheld your son, your only son, from me. Abraham's faith was greater than mine could be. I don't know if I could do that to any of my children, but at that time period, it's not unheard of for people to. Maybe Abraham was like, well, I guess, maybe he's not much different from that, but there must be something. He knew that there was something, because he did say, I and the boy will return. Okay? Will return. And here's the interesting thing. Just going to read this real quick. In John chapter 8.
They both will return, but one of them will be first.
No. No.
God wants to sacrifice him, but prepare him for supper. That's kind of rude.
Yeah, that is rude. All right. Okay. This is found in John chapter 8. Yeshua is talking to the people here, and even the Judeans. Judeans answered him, aren't we right in saying you are from Shomron and have a demon? Yeshua replied, me? I have no demon. I am honoring my Father, but you dishonor me. I am not speaking praise for myself. There is one who is seeking it, and he is the judge. Yes, indeed, I tell you that whoever obeys my teachings will never see death. The Judeans said to him, now we know for sure that you have a demon. Abraham died, and so did the prophets, yet you say whoever obeys my teaching will never taste death. Abraham Avinu died. You aren't greater than he, are you? And the prophets also died. Who do you think you are? Yeshua answered, if I praise myself, my praise counts for nothing. The one who is praising me is my Father, the very one about whom you keep saying, he is our God. Now you have not known him, but I do know him. Indeed, if I were to say that I don't know him, I would be a liar like you, but I do know him, and I obey his word. Abraham your father was glad that he would see my day. Then he saw it and was overjoyed. Mystery. When did Abraham see Yeshua's day?
It was a day.
Oh yeah, it was when he bound Isaac on the altar.
That's what we're getting to, right? So then it says in verse 14 of chapter 22, Abraham called the place, Abraham went and, here's verse 13. Abraham raised his eyes and looked, and there behind him was a ram caught in the bushes by its horns. Abraham went and took the ram and offered up a burnt offering in place of his son. Now, when we look at the Hebrew here, Abraham raised his eyes and looked. He saw. The word is re'eh. See. In the Kabbalah understanding too, the word is a mystery word. It means also to look through time. Okay? And so Abraham looked in time, and there was a ram caught in the bushes by its horns. Not a lamb, a ram. The ram is a male sheep, right? And the horns represent a crown. Okay? The thicket represents the sins of the world. Crown, what did Yeshua wear? A crown of thorns, right? And so this ram is caught in the bushes by its horns, a thicket by its horns. A crown of thorns. And Abraham went and took the ram and offered it up as a burnt offering in place of his son. Yeshua, the righteous man, died in place of us. Okay? And Abraham called that place Adonai Yireh. In English, they say Jehovah Jireh. Okay? Its main meaning is the Lord will see. But it has also come to be known in English as my God, or God will provide. Okay? But Adonai Yireh, the Lord will see. He's seen it. He's seen it. Abraham saw the Lord's day and he rejoiced. And now here's the thing that's interesting. Now, Abraham didn't offer up his son. He offered up that ram instead, right? But God paints another picture here. He wants us to see this very clearly, that even though Isaac was not killed, he wants us to see that he, in effect, was offered up, that he was given to God just as Abraham was supposed to do. Okay? And why do we know that? Many of the Midrash, Jewish Midrash, talk about this. But also it says, so Abraham returned to his young men. They got up and went together to Beersheba, and Abraham settled in Beersheba. Where's Isaac? God wants us to see that because of what Abraham did, his willingness, that God accepted Isaac as an offering without having to kill him. Okay? And what does Rav Shaul, Rabbi Paul, say? He says, be living sacrifices to God, right? Isaac was a living sacrifice, literally. And God accepted what Abraham did, accepted Isaac as an offering. And so we take a look at Yeshua. It says in the Talmud that a righteous man can die for the sins of his generation, but a truly righteous man can die for the sins of every generation. And that's what we see Yeshua as. He is the great righteous man, very righteous. And that in his death, he not just died for his generation, but for all generations. He died for the sins of all generations. Now, he wasn't an offering, okay? And a lot of people need to distinguish this and understand this, that Yeshua is not an offering. God does not accept human sacrifice. Doesn't matter how righteous they are. God does not accept human sacrifice. One, he didn't meet the criteria for any sacrifice simply because he was human. But not only that, but what did they do to him? In Judaism, we teach in order for a sacrifice to be a sacrifice, it has to be whole, has to be without defect, right? It cannot be tortured or maimed or anything like that, right?
In fact, if it feels pain,
Yeah, in fact, if it
cries out, then it's not a.
yeah, if it feels the pain, it's no longer considered kosher or qualifies as a sacrifice. Okay?
If you hear that sheep go, meh, before you know.
Well, that's why in Judaism and what God taught Israel, and you find it in the Mishnah, the oral Torah, that you have to have a very, very sharp knife. It can have no blemish to the blade whatsoever. And they would lay their hands on it and basically confess the sins of Israel on the head of the lamb, or whatever was, as we read about later. And they would cut it from jugular to jugular, but it was so sharp the animal never felt it.
It was also a very thin knife with a kind of a crescent shape, so that it met
Yeah.
the neck. So when it went through, it was basically.
Yeah, and so the animal would not feel the pain, and the animal would bleed out. When you see it, the way they butcher animals today, have that little thing that knock it in the head or whatever, and it jumps all around and stuff like that. Kosher kills don't do that. They don't feel it. And it takes just a few seconds and they're dead. And then, but if the animal were to feel the pain, if you were to hesitate for a moment even, instead of going right through it and you hesitate, that hesitation they declare caused that animal pain, and so it's no longer kosher for sacrifice or to even be eaten. That's that's how important it was to make sure the animal didn't feel pain. And we see this throughout the Torah. Don't take a bird with its mother's eggs. Shoo the bird away and then take the eggs. Matter of fact, that is a small commandment with a great reward. It's the same reward as honor your father and your mother.
And that is what's meant by that which you do unto the least of these, you also do to me.
Right. What you do unto the least of these, you do to me, right? Still God's creation.
Yep.
You don't sacrifice a mother on the same day that you sacrifice their baby, the calf, right? You don't kill a calf in front of its mother. You don't do this stuff in a kosher mill where they do this stuff. One animal is brought in at a time. The place is completely clean. There's no blood, no smell of blood, no smell of death. The animal is comforted, and then it is killed, and then they process it. And before they even bring the next one in, the place is completely cleaned up again. So there's no smell of death. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. And
shouldn't even be afraid coming in. They shouldn't smell death at all.
right.
They shouldn't even know what's happening.
And see, because they don't jump around and stuff, the adrenaline doesn't get into their meat, which is poisonous to human beings. So when they do the killing they do right now, where the animal's flopping around, stuff like that, it causes adrenaline to go into the meat, which then becomes a carcinogen, cause of cancer in people.
That's a hitting an animal, which is what that dart gun basically does. Is you don't realize you can destroy that nerve cluster, but the higher functions of the brain are still going on.
Yeah. Yep. And it still feels pain.
Yeah, we're eating the animal suffering.
Yeah. And so we see with this here, Yeshua didn't meet the criteria. Why? Because he was beaten, right? The skin was literally tore from his body. He was tortured. He was in pain. And he was a human being. And he was not offered in the place. I know a lot of people like to say, he was offered in the place where the sin offerings are. No, he wasn't. He wasn't. He was offered outside the city of Jerusalem.
And some people say that his blood dripped through the earth, seeped through the earth, and dripped down onto the ark or whatever.
Yeah. Some people say that.
In the process, he sanctified
Yeah.
the entire
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah, and you hear there are people, just say it again, is that there are some people who believe that and teach that his blood, when it dripped down, went through the earth and fell onto the mercy seat of the Ark of the Covenant, which is not, and didn't do that. Like I said, like the Torah says, God does not accept human sacrifice. Matter of fact, he even says, it has never been my thought in my thinking to do such a thing. Okay? But what we take from this is that just as we are given the understanding, this picture, Isaac's not here, we are to think of it as God accepted Isaac as a sacrifice, right? And so we look, and so we look at with Yeshua too, not that he was a literal sacrifice. Okay, we got to realize he wasn't a literal sacrifice, but in essence, we are to look at it as if he was. Okay, so someone who sacrificed his life for our sins, who showed us the way to walk out God's Torah, to walk out God's instructions, his commandments, and how to live a life that glorifies God, right?
Although, in retrospect, Isaac was probably thinking, I probably should have shown him how to run.
That's another thing. In some of these cartoons and shows, it shows Isaac as a little boy. Isaac was at least 37 years old when this took place. He was not a little boy. Just like Ishmael, that says a young boy, a child, right? He was in his 20s when they were forced to leave, his mother and him. So he wasn't a little boy. It's the word in the Hebrew that sound like that. Yeah.
Didn't she carry marry her son?
No,
Didn't it say something, or maybe she held him?
she
while
held
he
him.
died or
Yeah.
something while he was-
well, he was, yep.
And really
Um,
this, I mean, if he's a little boy, by the time he gets to Ravka's got some explaining to do. I'm just saying.
Yeah. So, I mean, and so we see that here, when, remember, when Yitzhak was born, or when Ishmael was born, Abraham was 86 years old. Now we go 14 years later, and Isaac is born. So Ishmael was 14 when Isaac was born, right? And then it goes on later. So he was at least 14 years old. And then there was at the time of Isaac's weaning, so it's 4 or 5 years later. So close to 20 years old. So he's a young man, but not a child, right? And Isaac, same thing. He's not a boy. I see so many of these cartoons and stuff make him to be just this little boy. But the thing we need to see is that Isaac was willing to do this. Isaac could have fought his dad off. 100-year-old man and a young man, yeah, it ain't going to be much of a fair fight, but he was willing to do it, just as Yeshua was willing to do his job, his father's will. Yes?
You know, crossing the Red Sea coming out of Egypt. And Isaac,
Yep.
the origins of our faith were supernatural.
Supernatural.
They're not of
Yep.
this earth.
Right.
So was Samuel or Shmuel.
Yeah. Shmuel, yep. Also, Samson. I mean, there are some others too. And the other point I want to make about this too is that when Abraham was living in land of the Philistine and this thing with Avimelech and stuff, he paid Sarah money to show that if anything comes of this, that I never slept with her. She was pure the whole time. Okay? And one of the interesting things that is said about this in the Midrash and stuff like that is that when Isaac was born and stuff, when he grew, that so that people didn't say, well, he's actually Avimelech's son, is that he looked exactly like his father Abraham. There was no way you could say that he's somebody else's son, okay? And I want to point this out about Yeshua too. The same thing went about the story of Yeshua, well, that Mary was messing around and he's actually somebody else's son. I honestly believe that story about Abraham and Isaac looking alike, that God took DNA from Joseph and created the body for Yeshua, and that he looked exactly like his father, his earthly father. So people couldn't point their fingers and say, you.
Instead they go, what's going on here?
I believe that.
I do too.
I think it's a true witness, and that Joseph was a rabbi, a teacher of the Torah and stuff. You can see that in his children.
Well, it was true. It was absolutely true. I believe there were temple records of this anyway.
Yeah. Well, we see that with Yaakov, Yeshua's brother, James, the leader of the Med community or the church at the time. The knowledge and stuff that he did have. I'm sure God gave them that stuff too, but we see that as well. And I don't go with the Catholic Church that says that he never had. We read about him. It even says, "Isn't his brothers and sisters live here with us?" But they like to say, "Well, she married somebody else." Whatever. That's just more, for this stuff. Yeah, yeah. And Yeshua was definitely a boy, and we know that because he was in the temple. His parents are heading back home after Passover, right? He's a kid. He's a boy. Wanders off. Worries his mom and dad. He was a boy. He was a human being, right?
Last quarter when I was in the health class, and they were doing I wasn't a part of it. Dave too.
Yeah.
And the health teacher, I'm pretty sure he's like religious. I don't know which branch of Christianity,
Yeah.
but he was saying, in my last class, I said there has never been I think he said like abstinence.
An example of
Abs-
someone abstaining that got pregnant.
yeah, and he was like, "Oh wait, Mary."
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he realized that after the class ended.
Anyways, I just want you to realize too is that that these aren't made up stories. There's a witness. They witness back and forth of the same story. When we get up to the story of Joseph, there's other ones there too, but you can see the definite story in Abraham and Isaac and the Akedah and the things going on there, and in the story of Joseph and so forth. We'll see all that, and that's what Yeshua said, that the Torah and prophets are written about me. And when he met those after his resurrection, he met those two Talmudim students on walking, and he went with them and explained all these things, and showed him where it was written about him. It's written about him. Even the rabbis teach that in every 3 verses that you read, the Messiah can be found. So it's not an accident. This Bible code that they come out with, you can only do it with the Torah. You can't do it with any other books and stuff for the Bible. It's just the Torah that you find this stuff in. It's a code that God put in there, and that's the truth, because Hebrew is a unique language. We refer to as the holy tongue, right? The holy language, and there's a reason for it, because it's not just an alphabet, not just numbers, but it's also pictures. The letters are a picture of something, and they're musical notes.
And also remember, each letter is in itself a word.
And each letter in itself is a word. Yep. So.
It's got all of them, all the boxes checked off.
Yeah. So it's not an accident. And what's interesting too is that a lot of languages have their root in Hebrew. And I mean, there was a study I did with a rabbi. He does 4 of them. I can't remember his name offhand, but it was showing how Hebrew influences every language. Even look in Europe and a lot of the Latin American countries, and even some of the Slavic and stuff countries, what do they call Saturday? They don't call it Saturday. It's Sabata or Sabati, something like that. Yep. Or Sabtana.
In 1921, this famous man said, "There's not the slightest chance it will never, ever occur that the Hebrew language will be reestablished and spoken and written."
Yeah, he was shown to be a liar then, huh? Because it's always been spoken.
Believe what he said, but,
Yeah. Yeah. Basically, Hebrew was a dead language, but it was revived. God revived it miraculously.
first thing Ben Gurion did, one of the first things, we're going to speak Hebrew again.
Yep. And it actually started with the founder of the Zionist movement. I can't think of his name now. He actually he helped, and many others with him helped bring the Hebrew back. And that's where it started again, bringing the Hebrew back. Because countries, Jews in different parts of the country were either speaking Yiddish, or there was the Spanish version of the Hebrew too.
Latin.
What?
Latin.
Something like that, yeah.
I
So,
remember hearing it somewhere as a child.
yeah.
You're talking about the leader or the founder of Zionism is
Theodor Herzl. There we go. Yes, Theodor Herzl. Him and a bunch of others, that's one of the things they were trying to do. And realize too, Theodor Herzl was a atheist. Okay? But yet he still believed the promise of God about the land of Israel. And he helped get an organization, even though it was secular, moving to restore Hebrew and to get the land of Israel back. You know.
He knew, I mean, because when they were doing this, there was Poland after Poland.
Mm-hmm.
The Spanish Inquisition didn't actually end until 18.
No, it was in the 1900s. It was in like 19. I think it was 19 after World War II that they actually rescinded because of the Holocaust and stuff. The Catholic Church finally rescinded the order. Yep. And then it was the second Vatican Vatican II. Yeah. So. Yep. So just know this isn't a mistake. There are no coincidences. I know a lot of people like to do that, but there isn't. God has a purpose for everything. Every word is accounted for. That's why he tells us to take account of our words. Be careful how we speak, right? Because everything God has said has a purpose and a meaning and a reason. It's not by accident. Okay? So just as you go, think about that, God is real. God is not a figment of our imagination or something to make our weak minds strong. You know what they say, right? My relationship with God, I work on every day to try and make better. But he's real. My confidence is in God. Over the years, we've seen, my wife and I especially, have seen while we've been married the mighty things that God has done for us, taken care of us. We've gone through tests and trials, but we've relied on him. Yeah, the beans. We have some really good stories. My wife is writing a book about a lot of these things, so I'm hoping that she gets done soon. So, but I mean, just in our own life, these weren't coincidences. These weren't accidents. These were things that helped us grow our faith in God and relying on him. We are here because of him, exactly. And God has had to show me, even though maybe we don't have a lot of people to come here, but he showed me, he says your first and foremost responsibility is to your family. And that's how we need to understand it. It's our family. Our family, I always thought that, it was supposed to bring other people in and stuff, but God will do that. God will bring other people in when it's time and stuff like that. But the first and foremost responsibility is for our family. How many times does he say, and you shall teach your children, you shall teach your children, you shall teach your children, right? That's our responsibility. Teach them in the way they should go. When they are old, they shall not depart from it in Proverbs, right? That's what we got to do. And it's never too late. I don't care who you are. It's never too late, and you haven't sinned so much that God won't forgive you. I've had to talk to people. God has never called us to be perfect. But people are stuck on that because people have been taught, oh, you got to be perfect. No, you don't. Look at the people God has used. Imperfect people. God meets you where you are. I love this saying that was part of my dad's old ministry. God loves you so much, but too much to leave you that way. And it's true.
Think of it this way. If we go back to Genesis, what did God do? How did God form man? He took the dust of the earth, and it says, he spit in it, formed the body of man, and breathed his own essence, his own breath into man. If God were to leave you, he would be leaving him a part of himself behind.
Yeah.
When I was in third grade, I had a heated conversation with one girl in my class about how her mom got, how mothers get pregnant, and she said, my mom had me because her and my dad love each other, and I said, no, it's because God loves you. And she was like, no.
Well,
maybe.
in this sense, it does take three: God and a husband and wife, right?
So God brings you together.
Yep. Yeah.
Sews the sides together.
Yep. Exactly. So.
Maybe comes out of that.
Married or get pregnant.
Yep. So. All right.
In my mind, it was just God doing
We'll go ahead and bow our heads for the priestly blessing. Our God and God of our fathers, bless us with the threefold blessing in the Torah written by the hand of Moses, your servant, and pronounced by Aaron and his sons, the priests, your holy people, as it is said. May the Lord bless you and protect you. If you will. May the Lord make his face shine on you and be gracious to you. May the Lord turn his face toward you and grant you peace. Yevarecha Adonai v'yishmerecha. Yair Adonai panav elecha v'chunecha. Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha. Shalom. Have a blessed week. Blessed rest of Sabbath. Tuesday night, remember, we have our Torah Club at 7. Wednesday night, we have our Wednesday night study as well. And then coming this next Saturday, we'll still have services here, but we will be having a Thanksgiving meal with family and stuff, but everybody's welcome. And sorry about the construction going on here. We're getting some work in here, and hopefully that'll be gone by next week. Better be. Yeah. So, but anyways, so that's what we got going on there. But like I said, we got Thanksgiving coming up. You know, it's not next week; it's the week after. But we're doing a family thing, and if you want your, it'll be after services next Saturday,
Next Saturday,
the 23rd. The 23rd.
Let me look.
That's what you told me, the 23rd, which would be next Saturday.
Oh,
And then, because the 26th is the Wednesday after.
27th is the 27th is Thanksgiving, but
I have to find out. I don't know.
yeah.
Hey, what's going on, Dad?
But we'll,
Saturday the 23rd is what I said.
yep. So it's next Saturday.
It's before.
Thanksgiving. Yeah.
You guys is Thanksgiving?
Yeah. With family and stuff like that. It's on a Saturday. It'll be after services.
Okay, we could
So,
try and make that.
oh, good. That'd be great.
You just asked about Saturday and I just said,
Okay.
I
But
did clarify what Courtney's
People kept
mom's
saying Saturday.
Thanksgiving was. I think they were saying the
and we
week
can
after.
always do another one if you
week
want.
after?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we're going to probably do it the weekend before, is what it sounds like. Because I'm sure everybody else has other in-laws, stuff like that to go to. But so we'll do that. But you're more than welcome to join us, anybody that wants to. Also, keep David up in prayer. He has his knee surgery on Wednesday, right?
No, sorry, it'll be Monday. Not
So Monday?
tomorrow Monday, but next Monday.
Next Monday.
Oh, next Monday. Okay. So still got a little over a week, but keep him up in prayer that everything goes well for that.
I'm taking medicine to prepare me platelets. And it's got me so sleepy, I can't
Hmm.
go to sleep. But
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm glad you were able to make it. Yeah, I wasn't really expecting that with your
they told
knee and
me
stuff.
Thursday, the first 2 weeks after surgery, you're gonna be in pain, so get ready for it.
Yeah. I believe it. My mom had knee surgery too, so she knows that too. So, yeah. So, but we'll be praying for you and stuff. So, but anyways, Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom.